Hello, I'm just making this video in response to some conversations I've had with fellow diabolists. As you all know, I am a diabolist, and there are different sorts of diabolists. I'm a witch, and for me, the devil is a very essential part of the horned god of witchcraft, and that's my primary connection. There are other kinds of diabolists. There are diabolists who would actually consider themselves very definitely to be Satanists, and different kinds of takes on this subject. But we all have a reverence for the devil, and we all worship the devil, and in whichever form, yeah. And so it's an actual thing, yeah, and I'm referring to it as diabolism because it actually, traditionally, the term means, worship of the devil, and a diabolist is somebody who worships devils, yeah, and that fits us, it certainly does, and it's the simplest term for things, really, and it circumvents some of the modern associations of the word Satanist, which have been so taken over. Yeah. Now, talking to my friends, we see a number of problems in the modern world. Now, one of the problems is the way that anything to do with the devil has now been associated with atheism, basically. Most especially anything under the name of Satanism is now associated with atheism. And we even see, for instance, in the mainstream media, things coming up about things like the Satanic Temple, for instance, and being tagged as articles about religious Satanism. Yeah. Now, there's absolutely nothing religious about the Satanic Temple. The Satanic Temple is an atheist political activist organization. There is no religion in it. The fact that they would present themselves as religious is an expression of their anti-religious sentiment, in a sense. It's another one of their trolling activities, essentially. And what they are doing, effectively, is trying to sort of lampoon and ridicule the idea of religion from the point of view of an anti-religious secularist organization. And the trouble with that is that, on the one hand, they dovetail with the anti-religious sentiment of a great deal of the modern media. And where that doesn't hold in the modern media, in those pockets where people are more religious, they are taken to be actual Satanists because they need their little sort of boogeyman to actually say, look, there they are, that's where the evil is, that suits them too. So you have that sort of problem there. But in terms of the kind of the zeitgeist and the way the modern media is, it's overwhelmingly, I think, on the side of the sort of secular, anti-religious side of things. And so things like the Satanic Temple fit that perfectly. So they get propagated and they get a lot of press, and they also get put forward as, look, here are these activists, aren't they clever? Ha ha ha, So, but that's one problem, yeah. The fact that, for instance, at least as far as Satanism is concerned, it's seen as basically atheist, yeah. So that's one problem. But there is another problem for those who actually do worship the devil, and do consider themselves to worship the devil, at least, and do consider themselves to, for instance, be theistic Satanists, yeah, and such like. And that is that there is a real pattern, I'm afraid, of people engaged in what you might call what they think of as being religious Satanism and a kind of actual theistic Satanism, but being actually involved in the most stupid behavior, sometimes going all the way to out-and-out criminality and all sorts of violence and things. And I'm sorry, but that actually is the thing. It actually happens, yeah. And there are cases of that. And yes, you could say, well, look, this is mentally disturbed people who are being attracted to it. Well, look, if you're what they're being attracted to, you need to ask yourself a few questions, yeah. And so that's another problem that we have, yeah. On the one hand, there's the atheism, yeah, which completely misrepresents any sense of devil worship, yeah. And the good thing, at least, is that they say that they're not devil worshippers. Well, thank you for that, at least, yeah. But on the other hand, we've got people who actually think they are devil worshippers and who are simply acting out a kind of degeneracy, yeah, out of some kind of sense that that's what they're meant to do, you know, which is quite obviously an extremely stupid thing to do, and it's very damaging for anybody who actually is sincerely involved in the spiritual practice of congress with these beings and has a religion which involves the worship of the horned one in the form of the devil, what have you, or including that form, yeah. And so there are real problems here that we find. The only thing that I can think of which kind of parallels this in a sense is in part at least, but not with the atheist part of it, is that for a while within modern paganism, there was a real problem for heathens with this tendency to be associated with like neo-Nazis, who, by the way, do turn up in parts of theistic Satanism, yeah, as well, but sort of like with things like neo-Nazis, yeah. And with extreme forms of ethno-nationalism. And there was a real danger at one point that this was going to become dominant, at least in certain parts of the world, in terms of really being almost like a creeping norm within heathenry, yeah. And so there was actually a very successful internet campaign which occurred in the, I think it was the early 2000s, probably, it might have been late 90s to early 2000s. And it was called Heathens Against Hate. And I mean, well, with the way that the word hate is used politically nowadays, it sounds a bit cringy, but actually it was a very effective campaign. It was it meant that people could attach this to their websites or what have you, and people would know, look, these are heathens, and we don't accept all this bullshit, basically. Yeah, we don't have anything to do with that. We have different principles, and it was really, really effective, I think. And so sometimes I think maybe it would be great if we had something like a campaign for real devil worship, yeah, you know, and which would be associated with certain principles, just a few very basic principles that people could then say, well, look, I support that, you know, and if I'm thinking about what would the principles be? Well, look, here's a few suggestions. One, belief in the gods, yeah? Whether you call them demons or what have you, but belief in the gods and belief in the invisible realm and the other world, however you want to see it, but belief, basically, belief in those things. So that's your orientation, yeah? Another thing might be, for instance, respecting boundaries, not interfering in other people's in other people's lives, yeah, stuff like that. Allowing people to follow their own paths, providing they don't try and interfere with you, and vice versa. You know, that sort of thing. A non-interference policy. That sounds like a really pretty basic, common sense guide to quite a lot of life in a way, yeah. And very importantly, a commitment to not bring the community of devil worshippers into disrepute through things like supporting criminal activity, yeah, whatever it is, yeah, and understanding the laws of your country, yeah, and stuff like this. I think these sorts of things, which are really basic, yeah, but just, just say those three things, yeah, or even the first and last point, yeah, being an actual believer in the gods and not bringing your community into disrepute, yeah, in the wider community, in a moral sense, I mean. Obviously, there's always going to be people who think, what, you're a witch? That's disgusting, or what have you, yeah. That's not what I'm talking about, yeah. I'm talking about people who think that maybe it will be okay to kill somebody, or, hey, isn't drug addiction okay, or what have you, yeah. Or irresponsible sexual activity that wrecks people's lives, oh yeah, it's really cool. No, it's not. So I mean, and whatever it is, yeah, but whatever it is, because obviously there's going to be some variation, but there's going to be basic lines which people need to be maintained, and they're very sensible, they're very simple and sensible, yeah, because you're talking about some awful crap going on with people. And the thing is, I know that it can sometimes be a question of people with mental health problems being attracted to something that they think they can act out through, and for whatever reason. But the thing is, you have to make sure you're not that thing that they're attracted to, because, if you're a religion, that's not what you're about. You're not there for that, yeah? And if you're a spiritual person, that's not healing anybody. So, yeah. It's a no-go, basically. That's my ideas for today anyway. It just comes out of some discussions with people. It is more of a kind of a worldly thing, if you see what I mean. It's more looking at some of the things that face some of the people I know. But that's just my suggestions on it. So I hope you find it interesting.